Good evening, everyone. Understand the calendar then?
Yes, I
Okay.
Yes, I know it's a fast calendar.
All right, all right.
Fast moving.
Thank you. All right, I do have a second speaker signed in tonight, and I'm sorry, Rich, I might just butcher your last name. But
There's a little joke behind that one, if I could say without taking up my time real quickly.
is it Gajus?
In the third grade, the teacher called out Rich Gay Guy, and if you now kids are in the third grade, that stuck with me till a reunion decades later. But it is pronounced Rich Gages.
Gages.
And
Okay,
I
thank you,
have
Rich.
nothing against people's preference in that manner either. My name is Rich Gages. I reside at 5793 Juvine Way. Tonight, I'd like to comment on two topics. First topic, on Veterans Day, a day to recognize individuals who fought for our freedoms, like my close friend who's a disabled veteran, like my dad, whose name is on one of the plaques outside, like the gentleman in the room tonight that we recognized, and millions of others. On Veterans Day, I did a video tour of Delhi Township and some of the architectural buildings. And in part, I also did what's called a First Amendment audit. For those not familiar, a First Amendment audit is when someone simply exercises one of their First Amendment rights to see if government agencies and public employees respect that right. Specifically, they often exercise the right of free press, that is to audio-video record things of public interest from a publicly accessible place. Often they record public employees during the course of their public duties as supported by the Supreme Court rulings. On advice, I do not wish to go into the details of the result of this audit, other than to say that I feel my God-given, constitutionally defined, and likely case law established rights were threatened. Not only my right of free press, but also my right to exist in a publicly accessible area that I was previously told I have the right to be in. Tonight, I'm simply asking that the township respect citizen civil rights. The second topic is Resolution 2019-194 that was approved tonight on tonight's agenda. I looked to see when that was first made available to the public so that we could research it and provide public input on that resolution before a decision is made. The only thing I could find was tonight's agenda, so it looks like a decision, from what I understand, was made on that resolution prior to the public having an opportunity to provide feedback in a public forum such as this one. And if I'm wrong, I do apologize. I understand that 2019-194 authorizes an increase in spending limit for one individual by over 1,233%. I was told that prior to this resolution, that purchases over $750 spending limit required trustee approvals. I remember a ways back, there were some in Delhi that were not happy with the amount of money the township spent on two signs located in Delhi Pike and on Bender Road. At the time, I called in to inquire and was told the township was putting things in place to better notify the public and to get public feedback on similar large spending items prior to the purchase. I'm
Are you
concerned,
referring to the entrance to Delhi Township?
those signs.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you. I'm concerned that this resolution might be contrary to that accountability measure that was communicated to me. I'm curious if there is any information you can provide to assure the public that checks and balances are in place to mitigate any abuse that could come from increasing an individual spending limit over 1,233%. Over 1,233%. Specifically, the check and balance of the citizens to research and provide feedback prior to major purchases. And with that, I thank the trustees.
Okay, thank you. Law Director, do you have any comments to this?
Just two briefly, one on 2019.
I don't think your mic is on.
On 2019
Thank you.
dash 194, the limit was actually pushed to $15,000. So you're not even going to the extent of your limit that the General Assembly said you should have to modernize as a township. The board is very clear that I believe the last time this had been increased was when I was a sophomore in college, which is a long time ago. Government operations have gone beyond that. And I think President CVU made the point that you're on this council with other big townships, and you were the one of only 12 that kept it at that level. So all you're doing is doing what the General Assembly has said is a best operating process, which is to up that amount. And as Mr. Cameron pointed out, it's really not a practice change, because you're going to see the expenses one way or the other, either specifically through a resolution, or you're going to see it on a list, not on the purchase orders anymore, but you're still going to see it on a list. So it's really not a change in practice in terms of your oversight and your approval. It's really a change in practice so that Mr. Cameron can be able to pay bills, and so that people who do township relative business with the township can get paid quicker and may have more flexibility and come up with the times. That's point one on 2019-194. Point two, and by the way, that's been in place since January 1 of 2019. So it's not like the board just willy-nilly thought about that. The General Assembly put that in place specifically so the board could have that option. Point one. Point two, with respect to the First Amendment audit, I'm proud, being a law director for now 11 and a half months almost, to see how the township operates within the bounds of the law. But just because you have a First Amendment right to be in a certain place doesn't mean you have a First Amendment right to be everywhere, every time, any place you want it. For instance, you have a First Amendment right to petition the government, but you don't have a First Amendment right to take over the meeting. That's why we can set limits on what your comments are. There are reasonable time, place, and manner limits on any First Amendment right, and that would include taking videos or taking photographs of sensitive areas that aren't that A, aren't public record, and B, would cause potential security concerns. There are also very clear law in the 9th Appellate District where you can be charged with trespass for being on a public property if you are told your license to be on public property has been revoked and you don't leave. So that's very clear law. So the township does an excellent job of complying with First Amendment law, but the township also complies with reasonable time, place, and manner limitations if necessary to preserve its operations so that, again, they can continue to operate for the benefits for the benefit of the citizens of the township. So unless the president has any more questions, that's what I have to say on both those matters.
All right, thank you very much. I'm,
Still within my 5 minutes, ma'am?
I think you have like 2.5 left.
Thank you. With all due respect, on the first issue you raised, second one I raised, it didn't address any of my concerns, which was accountability and the ability for citizens to have input, as I was told when I called in, citizens to have input on major spending decisions prior to them happening. And so I don't know if that, I didn't hear that addressed. In terms of the First Amendment audit that was done, I was in a place I was told I could be in. So it wasn't a restriction like that. I understand there's restrictions on the First Amendment. I was abiding by those things. And some of those things sounded like they were in general. So I appreciate that you didn't comment on my situation specifically, because each situation needs evaluated individually. But I can say that it's my understanding that keeping things private and confidential, that I do have a right to record sensitive things from a publicly accessible place, and that it's the township's responsibility to keep those things private. And I will also say that the place I was at the time, I was told that I was allowed to be there by multiple people. Since then, I've been given multiple conflictory information on it. And even though I was told I could be there, I was given an order to leave. So that's all I wanted to say. I appreciate it, and thank you.
All right. Complete? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comments for the evening. Announcement of community events, Mr. Luby.
Delhi Sip and Shop Vendor Fair. It is Friday, November 15th from 6:30 to 10 p.m. It will be at the Delhi Senior Community Center at 647 Deep Road.